My name is Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation, a video exercise that I do every morning at about 5:30 a.m. to remember my life objectives and principles. Those which are outlined in my book, Going Alone, which you can read for free at goingalone.org. I also use this time to think about the last 24 hours and how I did with the challenges and opportunities that I met, namely those of interest. Interest being interesting in terms of exercising my values, right? Challenges and opportunities where I distinctly had a chance to respond well, decide well, and act well. Or where I didn't do any of those things, or some combination, failed in some way to either, act, decide, and respond, and how could I improve that? I'll also go over the objectives of my creed, and then plan for the coming day. But first, welcome to new subscribers. I'm glad to have you on the channel. My name is Kurt. I'm a 61-year-old American living here in Japan with my wife, Yumiko. She's Japanese. And we're about a half year into retirement. And I wrote a book called Going Alone back in 2018 that has been instrumental in helping me to tune and improve my life at this late stage. And this video is my chance to work on myself relative to my book, relative to the values outlined in my book. So with that said, this video, though it happens in Japan, is not about Japan. It's just me talking about the last 24 hours to see how I'm doing, to see if I need to be tuned in some way. As such, I will talk about things that are sensitive, maybe, that may unsettle people, like death, religion, a few other things. And a big thank you for those that watch my videos and that are members on YouTube and support me via Patreon. I do appreciate your help. Okay, with that said, let's get started in earnest. Quick weather check. It's currently 25 degrees, spot on, and about 74% humidity. So that humidity should start dropping a little bit as the temperature begins to rise. It'll be an interesting day. All right. Yesterday was a very interesting day. If you remember if you've seen these videos, I do this every day. So sometimes I talk about things as they develop over time. You may have, if you've seen the last couple of days, you may have recalled that I've been noting a significant change, which is that all of a sudden, like within the last week, a type of vitality has reemerged that I haven't known since my 20s. I literally feel, if not 21, at least like 25, 24, something like that. Why is that what does that feel like? Well, it feels like just having a perpetual well of reserves to call on, and also a body that seems willing and able. Now, when I was in my mid-20s, of course I had that by virtue of the fact that I'm reflecting on it, but what I didn't have back then was a mind that was sound and quiet and disciplined, and that would heed my guidance and my admonitions. Back then my mind was a wild thing, thinking its own thoughts as it wanted, for as long as it wanted, at any time it wanted, and it had the reins of control over my body, causing me to decide, do, and act in ways that were hardly prudent and certainly not in my best interest in the long run. It took decades of concerted effort to wrestle control over my mind. That gave me then the reins and the control over my body. Now, the funny thing was that after, 4 decades of working hard to try to become disciplined here so that I could control here, what I had here was lacking. I was tired and worn out, and it was like wrestling to get the control of a race car that once you finally get control of it, it's almost out of gas. or it's just at last legs. That's what the experience of the last couple of years has been. It's been a couple of years that this has been happening. Really, it started in earnest at about age 57. 57, and I'm not throwing this out there to say that others should experience this, expect the same, although I've had plenty of people, since I talk about this sometimes, plenty of people tell me that indeed the last years of the 50s and going into the 60s were big in that capacity. That for a lot of people, they experienced the same type of thing. A seeming shutting down of the body, or at least a rapid degeneration of the body. And simultaneously, something similar seems to be happening in the mind. All at the same time when we suddenly find ourselves free, right? What a great irony of life, that freedom that we work so hard to achieve may come at a time when we can't really enjoy it very well or fully even. Now, that said, like I said before, suddenly, this has only been about a week. Something happened, something changed, and suddenly my vitality has returned. Sleeping well, that's been going on for more than 6 months. Sleeping well, sleeping soundly through the night every night. Eating well, getting lots of exercise, hardly drinking at all anymore. And it's funny because the hardly drinking thing, that's not because that's the only reason that that's changed is that I don't want it. I don't want the effect that it has afterwards, right? It used to be, and I've come up with a little theory on this, that I used to have a beer at the end of each day, and I didn't have it every day. I would have it like maybe 3 or 4 times a week. I would have a single can, small can of beer with dinner, and I would do that. And I told myself it was something that I'd earned, but I really think what I was doing was dulling the pain, because life was hard for so long. And a beer in the evening, even if it was just one little one, kind of dulled the pain. I don't feel that pain anymore. I don't feel it up here, and I don't feel it here anymore. My arthritis has essentially cleared up. I don't feel that anymore. I feel good. I feel like I'm definitely old, but I feel good. So I don't want a beer because I basically I don't want the effects, and I don't seem to need it anymore. So that was interesting. My daughter sent me a case of beer for my birthday, and it's just sitting in the refrigerator, and I'm waiting for her to show up. So she comes and visits once a month. I wait for her to show up, and I'll have a beer when we have dinner together. So she says, I'm drinking Dad's beer, the beer he gave me. Otherwise, I don't want it. So back to this really interesting thing that suddenly I have energy again. Tim, if you're out there, Tim from the UK, who is regularly joins me here, he's 2 years ahead of me in retirement. And when I mentioned what was happening, that suddenly I have energy again, Tim said the same thing happened to him at about the same time, 6 months in. And Tim, you came up, if you're out there, you suggested a theory that maybe it simply took that 6 months to kind of release I can't think of a better word than the toxins of whatever it was that hard life that we've been living for 40 years, raising and sustaining a family, making a hard living, setting ourselves up for our security for ourselves and our loved ones, our wives in our old age, etc. Maybe getting on the other side of that took about 6 months to get the toxins out. Just like it takes you a hard night of drinking, it might take you the next day to recover the hangover before you're back on your feet. So, Tim, if you're out there, I looked it up. I made a blog post about it last night and I posted it on Facebook. And then I took that blog post and I fed it to ChatGPT, explaining what I just explained and asking, is there any validity to this idea that post-retirement, that it can take some time to kind of leach away the toxins and feel good again? And it came back and said, not only is that an often reported thing, an anecdote given by many people who are retired, but it is also enforced by evidence that indeed it does appear to be the case, that there's, I think it's cortisone, I probably won't say it right, there was a chemical, it's a stress chemical, I think it was cortisone, that is released, and that it's a kind of a toxin, and that when you live a life of sustained stress and anxiety, like Tim, I'm going to use you and me because you and I are so similar, and we had similar life courses. When you have that sustained life of high stress, and for me, I think for you, Tim, anxiety as well. I mean, in the latter years, panic attacks. I mean, it was awful. It was horrible. Apparently, our bodies are just flush with the chemicals that are related to stress management. And it seems that after a while, once you turn the stress faucet off, the chemicals kind of flush out, and you're left with this somewhat withered, dilapidated old body and this mind, but free of whatever that stuff was. Especially if we've taken a course of action, as I know you have, Tim, as well, of serious, concerted effort towards exercise, towards finding things to do to keep our minds occupied and busy and enjoying life. So I guess this thing that's happening to me, this sudden resurgence, isn't something that's not true. It really seems to be a thing. So, all that by way of saying that my one note for yesterday, for the last 24 hours, was that I have a note of high energy and interest. Yesterday was, I don't know that 24-year-old me could have kept up with what I was doing yesterday. I did so much yesterday. And I didn't do so much because I was striving to prove anything. I was doing so much because by my very nature, I am very interested in living well and enjoying life. I always have been that way. Even as a boy, I would wake up early. It drove my family nuts. They called me the good morning guy. I would, as a teenager, I would wake up well before the dawn. I would go through the house. I don't know why I did this, and I would open the doors to the rooms of the family members and say good morning. And I remember my brother throwing things from the bed at me. Then I would, wherever I had to do, if I was riding a bicycle to school, I would ride my bicycle to school, and everybody I saw on the street, I'd be shouting across the lane, good morning, to everybody, because I was so excited to have another day of life and to be ready to go. And I had this body that was just youthful and energetic. My mind, though, on the other hand, was fraught at that time. And I battled. I spent 30 years battling with my mind to get it under control so that I could be mature and deliberate in my living. And so then it was kind of a disappointment to find that finally, by the time I got there, that this was worn out. But now it's not worn out. So now I feel like that 24-year-old, that 16, 17-year-old good morning guy again, back in control in a car that's got a refurbished engine and a new transmission. And sure, the suspension might be a little bit weak, but it's not. I'm not a new model, but I'm in good shape. And boy, did I have fun yesterday. Yesterday was a great day. Did a lot. Went out and had a hell of an adventure with Rudy. Just a great day. But those details aren't important. That's not what this video is about. This video is not about talking about the incidents of the day. It's talking about the meta factors of well-being relative to it. And I've done that in spades. So I think I've covered yesterday. Great to know that whatever this is that's happened could be here for a while. Although, bear in mind, statistically speaking, I've only got another 4 years before I'll see the onset of my first major life disease. 65 from my cohort seems to be the age. So at least I got another 4 years, right? Hopefully, maybe longer. Let's go over the creed. My creed consists of 8 objectives and 35 principles outlined in my book, Going Alone. Each and every day, at bare minimum, I have to recite the 8 objectives just so that I can touch them and make sure that I have them in mind, which works incredibly well. I can't tell you, let me just pause for just a moment. Whatever values you have, you like back in, the religious people, like I think it's the Catholics and the Buddhists, they have their rosary, right? They can prayer and touch the beads. And there's something to doing that, to a routine. Well, let me show you something. Just a second. Some of you may know that I have a shelf over here that is my one shelf that has the important things that I've collected in my life that I want to leave to my daughter when I die. And there's this one thing right here that she knows what it is. This little tray of rocks. What's 35 plus 8? 43. There are 43 stones in this tray, okay? Those stones, and I did this by in remembrance of the Catholic rosary and the Buddhist beads. These 43 stones represent the 8 objectives and 35 principles of the Good Life Creed. I picked up these stones. They were not nicely, beautifully, I'm going to turn the camera on. They were not so beautiful like this, rounded, etc. When I picked them up, I just picked them up almost randomly out of the deep desert, the same landscape where I wrote this book. And I took them back and I bought a stone, turner, and I put them in the stone turner and I turned them, and I wanted to have them as my memory. So these stones, these 43 stones, represent the 43 items of creed that constitute my creed. Now, ostensibly, the idea was that I could then pick these up and I could say, like a Catholic with their rosary or a Buddhist with their beads, say, be always ready to die, to make good and effective use of time, to develop and maintain good and sound life principles, to cultivate good emotional reactions, to perform good actions relative to my creed. There's a pretty one. To recognize my true limits and true opportunities. To do just one thing at a time and do the thing slowly, deliberately, and carefully, and to keep my balance. So I keep these on the shelf. I'll show you where I keep them. Here, this is the shelf that has all the important stuff. The books that I want to leave my daughter and her children, the books that, Kurt, Dad, would recommend to read. Don't dump it over, Kurt. Each of these items has some meaning to it as well, and then they go right there. And there, I just recited the 8 objectives of my creed, so I don't need to do that now. Let's go to principle number 2 from the book. Yesterday we did the principle of war, which is the first principle. Next I'm going to do the principle of reason, which begins with a quote from Aristotle. The life of reason is best and pleasantest, since reason, more than anything else, is man. So too, this life is also the happiest. And I would agree. Here's my own writing on the subject. Reason is my first instrument of reconciling hypothesis with truth. To be effective, I must be honest with myself and others regarding what I know and do not know, and make pains to view the world objectively, without coloring reality too much with the imagination fortified of want or need or fear or the normalizing pressure of authority, tradition, and unfounded consensus. Doubt is my default stance and starting point for every new venture of inquiry, and humiliation at my own realized folly, the surest sense that I am on the right track of correcting my own wrongs. Reason, at its best, is a tool of self-immolation, turned first inward as I seek to burn away the chaff and waste of unprincipled living, and then outward in resistance of our species' less worthy answers to the mysteries of life. So really talking about applying reason on two fronts, internally and then externally, to make sure that I'm not abiding unreasonable or unsound ideas, namely my creed. And likewise, that when someone comes to me and presents a truth, that I have a tool to, in my epistemology, that I can then use to gain an idea of whether or not it ascertain if it is true or not. Reason is that tool. All right, so with that, let's go on to the next 24 hours. I have, it's Friday, so I have just one thing that I want to do. Yumiko bought a Satsuma Imo plant so that we can have it. It's the kind of thing that if you plant one of those, it kind of spreads out, like the Three Stooges, spread out. And so I've cleared out the garden. We had a beautiful thunderstorm last night, so the ground is nicely wet. I'm going to go out into the garden after breakfast and prepare another garden row. I went to the home center 2 days ago and got a bag of fertilizer, fertilize it, and plant that Satsuma Imo to get it in the ground so that we can have sweet potatoes in the fall. That's my plan for today. And otherwise, it's plan to spend the day with my wife and my father-in-law and my dogs. That's it. Let's go ahead and read comments. Hi, Sam. Good morning. Good morning, Tim. Sam says, the new gel hairstyle looks good, dude. You talk about lasting physical need my glasses. You talk about losing physical vitality or something, but you look great for a 60-year-old. Body is toned, good tan, well-spoken, can fight a fucking bear. I don't know, maybe. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. I feel good. Good Morgan. Good Morgan, Nina-san. Mixing some languages there. Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. Good morning, guys. Going on evening there. Hello, Retzel. Hey, Retzel. Cortisol. Cortisol, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the stress hormone that builds up and takes time to get out of our system. Wow, really? That is so interesting. So I wasn't imagining it. Amazing. But I've come to realize now how much the stress I had in the last 3 years, if work had taken its toll, what really worried me. Yeah, apparently it's a thing, Tim. Your comment, as so often your comments, and Evelyn and Sam and others that are the regulars here, really give me reason to think. And I looked it up, and apparently, Tim, you're spot on. It is a thing. Yeah, imagine if we'd spent more time at the coal face, right? How much harder it would be to recover. What really worried me was I was expecting this stress and its toll on me to disappear as soon as finished work, but it didn't. It took around 6 months to feel good again. That's amazing to know. Thanks, Kurt. Thank you, Tim. Thank you to you, Tim, because I didn't know this. I too expected the stress that something would that I would feel better immediately. I guess it would be, and I think it's an apt, is it an analogy to say it would be a little bit like thinking that as soon as we stop drinking after a bender, that the next morning we're going to feel fine. We're going to need time to recover to get all that poison out of our system, right? And it's exactly what it was. But imagine 40 years of hard labor, and then how long it takes to get that poison out of our system. And this is why I'm really glad that I continue to talk about this. I mean, it's awkward for me sometimes to talk about retirement, so in such a broad group. I mean, because I know that there's people that are not in that camp, and that it may not be interesting to them. But maybe by fleshing these things out and sharing them, maybe it can be useful to others. I hope. Okay, I'm Ray. Was impressed how long you worked the garden yesterday, especially wearing that extra outer garment. Garden looks great. Good. You know, it's funny, Okayama Ray, or just may I call you Ray? That outer garment looks like it would be, hot on the inside, but it's not. It's actually vented, and it's actually breathable. And all I'm wearing underneath that thing is a swimsuit. So while it looks like it would be hot, in fact, the light color, it's designed. Excuse me. Pardon me. excuse me, that garment is designed specifically for people working in the outdoors where there's insects. So it's not a problem. Got a frog in my throat, probably gonna have to wind up. Biggest symptom I had of stress was numb. I can't talk all of a sudden. Okay, let's see if I can finish this up. Biggest symptom, Tim says, biggest symptom I had of stress was numb. Oh, let me just finish with talking to Ray. Thank you, Ray, for your comment about the garden. This was one of the things that surprised me, was where is this energy coming from? Because if I had just 2 or 3 or weeks ago or a month ago, if I had spent 2 hours like that working in the garden, I would have been finished by evening, and it would have taken me a day to recover. And it didn't do that. So yeah, I got a lot done in the garden, and I got it done like I was 24 years old again. Amazing. Tim says, biggest symptom I had of stress was numb feet, which came on suddenly, and now back to normal. Stress plays havoc with the physical body and mind. Wow, that's a little scary. Tim says you did an amazing job on the garden. Thank you. Pink, hi Pink. First time I've seen your name. Welcome, greetings. It's good to have you from London. It's 2 of you from the UK at least in here. I'm getting ready for bed. Oh, wow, okay. Well, I hope you sleep well. Ray says, what has helped me is the saying, you can't wait until life isn't hard to be happy. That's a good saying. Tim says, swallowed a mosquito, time for some green tea. There you go. All right, well, I think I'll wrap up for today, and I have a big video to get out for the Retiring in Japan series. Yesterday was a hell of a day of an adventure, so I just finished rendering it. This is my second time. The first time it came out, some of the bits were upside down, so the copy that I sent out to Facebook was really weird, so I fixed it, hopefully, and it's ready for upload. Plus, head out now for to do radio exercise. One of the younger members of the radio exercise team, our age, Tim, I think he's 63, he and his wife. Get this, you guys might find this interesting. He lives in our neighborhood too. And his son is the only boy, was our daughter's first date. Before she came to America, she was in junior high school, and their son invited our daughter out on a date, and they went downtown Shizuoka and went to a movie together. They have this couple has they have one child just like us, their young son. He's now he's graduated from university and living in Tokyo, just like our daughter is graduating university and living in Tokyo. But, so he does the radio exercise with me as well. He's retired as well. He's 63, so he's a little bit ahead of me in terms of age. But he's retired, he and his wife, and they've got a beautiful house just up the river. Anyway, and they both speak English really well. And they invited Yumiko and I over for coffee next week. So we're going to do that. But it's going to be interesting to have coffee with the parents of the boy who, if life had taken a slightly different course, could have wound up, it's a long shot, but could have wound up being our in-laws, right? Interesting. Thank you, Evelyn. It's been nice spending time with you as well. Wish you all the best, everybody. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care.